Hey everyone, it's the interview queen, Alicia Atout here, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to my interview with Santi Aragon. Welcome.
What's up, Alicia? It's good to be
What's
here.
up? Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I knew that I was going to be on a bodybuilding slash wrestling, so I had to wear my Razor Ramon hat for you.
We're definitely going to get into wrestling. When we were talking prior and I asked you, hey, do you want to come on? And you said, yeah, I've been watching wrestling since I was a kid. I was like, yes, that's like my favorite kind of person to have on. It's like the perfect crossover for what I do. So we'll definitely touch base on that soon enough. But obviously right now, the world is crazy. We're all going through a lot. We're all adapting. So how are you coping with that aspect right now?
I'm good. I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I've had a lot of friends that own gyms. So when everybody was not in the gym, I was lucky enough to still have a couple options to still stay in the gym. And, what happened is that after the Arnold Classic in March, they allowed us to compete, no spectators. And usually when you get into shape to get ready for a show, you do shows after it. You just don't do one. So every time that I was getting ready for the next show, it would be canceled or postponed all the way back. So the dreaded mark, just so that you understand, the dreaded mark of competing is that 4 weeks out. That's when the suffering usually really starts. So I was 4 weeks out 4 different times.
That sucks. You must have just been putting your body and mind through so much BS during that time. Like, I can only imagine. That would have been awful.
Let's put it this way. Every time that a show got postponed, I knew that was my call to either go to McDonald's or go get a pizza.
I couldn't blame you. I really wouldn't. Well, to fight boredom during this quarantine and the pandemic, I know so many people have taken up baking or just watching tons of shows. So have you found yourself doing anything new or kind of taking on any other hobbies, since we do have a bit more extra time than usual?
Yeah, I mean, I went ahead and I subscribed to Audible and I listened to audiobooks. So
why not?
One thing that I was doing a lot is when, the gyms were closed, I was still able to go lift weights, but I still have to do cardio. So there was no cardio machines. And I found that going outside doesn't really burn that much calories. Like, you have to do a lot of time. So I like to keep my cardio session short and intense. So in Miami, I live in a building that's like 35 floors. So I was using the stairs in the stairwell to do my stair work. And I thought that maybe listening to audiobooks like David Goggins would really motivate me, and it really did. So I really got into that. I started listening to a lot of different political people that have audiobooks as well. So just kind of being diverse in other things other than being a meathead.
That's kind of been the silver lining with everything going on. I've noticed that I'm even starting to do things I didn't even think of before, because you just do have that extra time on your hands to adapt and do something differently. So it's awesome that you've been able to find a couple things as well. Well, when it comes to you, you are not only known as the Cuban Missile, but you also have another nickname, and that's Mighty Mouse. So
that's an old one.
Yeah,
that's an old one. Yeah. When I first started bodybuilding, we all had MySpace, and we all wanted, at least the teenagers. I started as a teenager competing, and all the guys that were teenagers as well, we all wanted our own little nicknames or whatever. So a lot of us just kind of went with superheroes and different things like that. And I'm like, shit, I'm the shortest one here. I'm Mighty Mouse. So I kind of went with the Mighty Mouse little persona, and then that, after some time and stuff, then it turned into the Cuban Missile.
Right. I was curious about the origins of that one, because you kind of hear different stories from different people, but I could not track down where that one came from. So there we have it. Now,
there it is.
There it is. Of course, when it comes to bodybuilding, you are an IFBB pro, and being in this sport, it takes serious dedication and willpower. So have you always been a super driven and competitive person?
Well, before bodybuilding, I actually was a hockey player. So I played hockey for 10 years before transitioning into bodybuilding. And hockey was almost the same mindset. At least everything that I use now, as far as mindset, drive, discipline, all those different adjectives, I learned them from hockey. And at a young age, I was very different than most kids my age because it was practice at 5 in the morning. It was eating enough meals so that you had enough energy to get on the ice. It was, 2-a-days, school, homework. It was just a very active life as a kid. So having to know that I had to time manage myself, and then now transitioning into bodybuilding, it kind of just naturally fell through with the discipline and the eating and the time management and everything. So
you already had the conditioning like down pat.
Exactly. It's like you go to a high school that preps you for college, and by the time you get to college, it's kind of like, oh, this is not a big deal. And everybody else is struggling because they're not used to it.
Yeah.
So I feel like I had a small upper hand on that just because of hockey.
And then when you did start, did you kind of have an initial goal or competition that you really wanted to be in or win, or were you kind of taking them competition by competition, easing into it, and just seeing where everything brought you?
So as a teenager, the most prestigious show at the time was Teenage Nationals. So when I started, it was naturally, I want to win Teenage Nationals. I want to win Collegiate Nationals. And then when I win and I won that, then it's kind of like, oh crap, now I have to compete against the older guys.
Right.
So I took a couple years off, and I kind of I don't like to overextend myself like some other competitors do, where it does take time to kind of get yourself up to a national level. I kind of went through the ranks slowly, even though I could have probably just went straight into nationals. I wanted to kind of like dip my feet in slowly and kind of progress that. And then once I got my pro card, it's kind of like now it's like, okay, I want to get first call out. I've done that. Now I got to win a pro show. That's my next goal, is to win a pro show. And then obviously the next one is going to be the Olympia. So it's kind of like you set small goals, and then when you look at the big picture, then you see, wow, I was able to accomplish everything that I wanted to do. And that goes for business too. It's not just bodybuilding. I mean, you set small goals so you don't, overextend yourself. And then at the end, you've kind of realized, wow, I've come a long way.
I feel like you have to set mini goals, because if you don't, you either become complacent or you just don't know what to do next. Like for me, this whole thing has been my like little DIY baby since I was 16. It started off as a hobby, and now it's what I do full time. So it's like, if you didn't have those little goals and baby steps, I really feel like I wouldn't be anywhere at this point.
And it's like what you said. You gotta love it too. You really have to love it, because if you don't, it's like
it's a grind.
It gets old. It gets old really quick, and a lot of competitors fall into that. And I always tell all the new competitors, I'm like, competing is a choice. It's a choice to compete. You don't have to compete, it's a choice. So any time that you feel like this is becoming a chore, that's when you have to step back a little bit, let things settle, and that bug is going to bite you again, where you want that fire to come and compete again. It's happened to me many times in my career, and I step back, the love comes back, and I jump back right in.
I've definitely noticed the same thing, where sometimes it almost feels like you have so much going on, things are great, and then after like a huge show, or I have a big event or TV tapings, like then things kind of calm down a little bit, and you're like, oh shit, what do I do next? And then you take that step back, you reevaluate, you think, and then you come back with even more passion and love to just kill it. So yeah, definitely been there. Well, it looks like you've been training incredibly hard and practicing posing all of the time, and you currently want to put on, I read this the other day, you want to put on at least another 15 pounds within a year. So is there kind of a goal weight in mind for you, or kind of like how we were talking about before with goals, like you just see what your body can do and just push those limits?
So it's a little bit different this year because I'm switching classes full time. So I was competing in the beginning of the year when I did the Arnold Classic. I was competing as a classic physique competitor. As a classic physique competitor, they have guidelines for how much you can weigh based on your height. So for my height, I can only weigh 180 pounds. With that, in the off season, you can't allow your body weight to get too high, because it's going to be impossible to come back down to 180 pounds. So even when I was done dieting, I wasn't done dieting. In the off season, I was dieting still.
That sucks.
Yeah, it really was terrible. And your body just at some point is like, I want to grow. Like, let me grow, eat more. And then now the 212, now that I'm able to eat massive amounts of food without having to worry about my weight so much, and lifting as heavy as possible and not being limited and not being held back by the amount of food that I'm eating, because the food directly pretty much affects the way that you train. So if you're not eating enough, you're not going to be able to train at 100%. It's just fact. So now I kind of have like this new world ahead of, in front of me, where I'm like, wow, I've never done this before. But then again, that brings that love back, because the origin of bodybuilding is not the stage. It's the part in the gym. It's the lifting part. It's not all these other taboo things that everybody thinks, and the supplements and the this and the that and no. It's training. That's the number one. It's training. And if you can't train 100%, then you can't bodybuild. That's just the way that it is.
Well, hopefully this new category is a lot more fun and a little easier for you, because I can imagine now it's kind of, sparked something again in you, and you're like, all right.
Easier, no.
It's a lot more difficult.
It's a lot more difficult, but I think that it brings another aspect of bodybuilding back into my life, where I was missing by not being able to eat and not being able to train at 100%.
I got you. Well, the next part I really want to move into is something I know that you're pretty psyched about, and that is the professional wrestling aspect. Yes. Because, like we said, I not only interview musicians and bodybuilders, but also wrestlers. So when I found out that you watched professional wrestling, I was psyched. So was it more so for you, like something you would watch as a fan, or was it because you were a fan of bodybuilding and you were like, oh, these physiques are something I want to emulate?
No, it actually started out as a small kid. I mean, I was probably...
So you were really young.
Yeah, I was probably 5-6 years old, and me and my dad would watch it every week. Every week we'd watch WCW, we would watch the Monday Night Wars, we would watch WWF before it was WWE, we would watch ECW, we would watch literally everything. So
any promotion,
anything. So I as a young kid, I mean 5-6 years old, I had all the figurines. I had the ring as a little kid. I had that pillow thing where you could you touch it and it's
totally.
Those things. I had that. I had all the video games. Like, I was a huge fanatic. And I didn't even look at it as, I want to be big like them or anything like that. I just loved wrestling in itself. I loved the moves. I loved the athleticism. I mean, I remember as a kid trying to emulate all the moves with my cousins before my parents came into the room, and we're pretending like we're doing nothing. And we're practicing pile drivers and stuff, really crazy stuff. But we loved wrestling. It was wrestling 24/7, really. Yeah. So that at least I would assume that the first jacked, muscular men from my memory from the past is going to be wrestling. Seeing Hulk Hogan, seeing Rick Steiner. Seeing Scott Steiner, seeing these big, massive men, seeing the Ultimate Warrior, all these guys, and then later on, I'm like, damn, they were jacked. They were really jacked. They could have competed if they wanted to. So those are the earliest memories of me is definitely wrestling.
And physiques have changed so much in wrestling. And back then, in that era you're mentioning, it really was when so many of those guys had that tapered V shape, and they literally could have stepped into competition. So what I find really interesting is the parallels when I'm interviewing bodybuilders and wrestlers, because a lot of the time when they are bigger wrestlers, because now there's a lot of high flyers who are on the smaller side, but all the bigger guys, they train like bodybuilders. They have to condition themselves, they have to eat, meal plan, all of that stuff. So had you ever thought of taking a wrestling route instead of bodybuilding, that was just not?
I always said, if God blessed me with another 5 inches, I would have definitely gone and tried out for the WWE. That would have been probably my dream job in the whole world. Because I always said, the type of celebrity if I had to be a celebrity, the type of celebrity that I would want to be is like a professional wrestler, where you could still walk places, you could still go to the mall, but then people kind of see you and they're like, is that who I think it is? Kind of thing, but they're not sure. But then you're all big and jacked, so they're kind of scared at the same time. So it's kind of like all these elements that I like about it, but God did not bless me with those 5 inches, so and I'm no Rey Mysterio, so that definitely cuts it out.
I was actually gonna bring him up because that's something that anytime someone mentions Rey Mysterio or he does interviews or anything, like the height is always brought up, how he like broke that barrier. So yeah, I was gonna say he could have taken that route, but I guess not.
Well, they have that what is it, the 202 or whatever?
205.
205, yeah, 205. I get confused with the bodybuilding weights. Yeah, the 205 where it's smaller guys, but I mean, it's nothing like what the cruiserweight division was back in the WCW when you had, all these incredible guys. I mean, you had Chris Benoit at one point. He was in the cruiserweight in WCW. You had Rey Mysterio. You had Kid Kidman. You had all these incredible guys that were phenomenal. And now it's size. I feel like now it's just people that are superhuman looking that are on the WWE.
If you could kind of take on a wrestling persona or a gimmick, 'cause I'm sure you thought this through when you were a kid, what would that in-ring gimmick be for you?
If I in my mind?
Yep. If you were a wrestler,
it'd be the Cuban Missile.
Oh, okay. So like what kind would you be like? I'm assuming you'd be a heel then. Like you'd be a bad guy.
I would probably be a heel, yeah. I'd probably be I don't know why, but I feel like it's easier to be a heel. Easier to be a good heel than a baby face. Definitely.
Like it's so much easier just in the world to like be a bit of an ass than to be like super friendly,
Love to be hated. That's what that's what I would be. I would just love to be hated.
That's what you strive for. I know that the bodybuilding isn't the only thing that's been really keeping you busy lately, as you've also created Paragon fitness gear. So for everyone who kind of wants to know, tell me a little bit about how Team No Waste came to be.
Oh man. So back when Team No Waste / the Waist Trainers started, the whole idea, I owned an electronic repair store. So that was my business. I bodybuild, and then I also had an electronic repair store. But I always had in mind, I'm like, I want to come out with a product that people want and there's a demand for. And, I always saw the girls wearing the waist trainers, and I knew that guys wore them, but guys were like kind of scared to tell other people that they wore a waist trainer. So I figured, I'm like, there's definitely a market for there. There's definitely a demand, but I think that if I could make it so that it's like cool and that it's like another thing that you wear to the gym, like another, like lifting straps or something, I think that this would be very successful, especially if I market it to men, which later on, now I have the women's stuff too. But it all started out as a men's waist trainer. And it started out just as a small box under my desk where I repaired my electronics. And, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of time to get the product correct. It took a lot of time to market it correctly. It took a lot of time, just a lot of patience involved in not having a lot of money to start and just going with whatever I had. And it took about a year. And then I started competing last year in 2019 in the beginning of the year, and just sales out of nowhere skyrocketed. I mean, I was out of stock. I was freaking out because this is all new. And I had to move that one box. That one box turned into 10 boxes that turned into a warehouse. And now I have a fully stocked warehouse now, full of it. I sold the store. I didn't need it. I definitely didn't need it anymore. And it's just amazing how many people love this product, and that I was able to come out with something that, is me. Like when I tell people like this waist trainer is me, meaning like the design, the idea, everything about this was everything that I thought of, and just seeing other people enjoy it so much and having so much positivity around it just makes me feel like I could retire today, kind of thing. I feel awesome about it.
You've done your part.
I've done my part. So right now I'm working on version 4, which is going to be a follow-up to the version 3. It's going to be a fully redesigned waist trainer, all new material, but still the same patterns that everybody loves, all the camo patterns, but a completely new design, completely new material. And then I'm also developing the fat-burning cream that goes with it. So these are the 2 products I think right now that are going to take Paragon to the next level.
That's fantastic. So when I was doing research for our interview, I was looking through your stories, and I was like, what is this thing that everyone's taking him in? Because I've known about you in bodybuilding, but I had no idea you had this business. And then I remember clicking, I was like, holy crap, like this is really booming. People seem to really love the product. So
Yeah.
congrats. Like that's a
Oh,
really
I
awesome
appreciate it.
thing.
No, I try to tell, because there's a lot of young guys that follow me, a lot of young up and coming bodybuilders. These are the guys that I love to speak to, and I love that type of audience because I started out as a teenager. So I can relate to everything that, they're asking or concerns or anything like that. And one of the questions that I always get asked is, how do you make money in fitness? How do you make money in bodybuilding? And I tell them straight up, I'm like, if you think it's the stage, you are in for a rude awakening because you don't make anything competing. Now, you could use the competing as a marketing tool to market whatever product that you're selling on the side, and that will help your sales. So you have to find a product that is in demand. You have to find a product that's people are willing to buy, and something that's a little bit different. Grab on a niche and go for it, and don't look back.
Yeah, it seems to have worked out. So that's really awesome to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, of course, and you've actually trained all over the place representing the sport and competing. So is there a city or country you've really fallen in love with through your travels or kind of during being out there?
When I first turned pro, I was sponsored by a very massive supplement company that I'm not with anymore, but we are in very good terms. I'm very, I'm super happy that I was able to represent them when I was traveling is Muscle Tech. And Muscle Tech had me travel to Dubai, had me travel to India, had me travel to China, just a bunch of different places where I probably would have never, maybe not now, but I definitely wouldn't go to China, and I probably definitely wouldn't go to India. But the India trip in itself was very memorable for me because one of my cousins, my very close cousin, he actually is a monk in India. I know it's kind of bizarre.
Crazy.
Yeah, he's a monk in India, and he lives on a monastery over there. And he's not planning on ever traveling back to the United States. So it was either us family, we have to go out there to go see him. So it just kind of the stars aligned where I'm like, oh man, this is great. I get to go to India and I get to see my cousin and I get to represent, Muscle Tech out there. And it was just he took me to some places of worship and stuff where it was just so like nothing that I've ever felt before. I'm not a very spiritual person, but you could feel something else, when you go over there. And these people over there, you really have a perspective of how lucky we are as U.S. citizens to live in the United States. Because if anybody ever thinks that they have it bad here, give me a break. Like, really, give me a break. And then the food was absolutely incredible. Like now Indian food is
That's my
literally
favorite part of traveling. Like anytime I have PBK things, I'm like, I gotta try some every time.
eating. I ate some really interesting things in India. I've eaten some really interesting things in China. And again, all these things, all these experiences were because of bodybuilding. No, I have to say thank you to my parents for giving me some decent genetics, I guess.
It really seems like this journey has brought you so many awesome experiences and very cool things. And I'm sure there's so much more on the horizon. So I really want to say thank you so much for coming on here and taking the time and just having a little chat today. It's been great.
Anytime, whenever you want me back, I'm a Skype call away.
I appreciate it. Everyone, this has been the awesome Santi Aragon. I am the interview queen, Alicia Atout. Be sure to check out aliciaatout.com for all exclusive interviews and features. And we will see you all next time. Bye, everyone.